It's basically summer for everyone out here now. Really, really nice day today. I'm roasting. So it's time for me to do a little vlog on a blade. I rode it yesterday for the first time, but I'll mix in clips so that you can see my first reaction of, you know, changing or like revving it through in first gear. Okay, that has considerably more punch in first. Without, obviously, like when I get on a 600 now, I'm a little bit more aggressive, I'd say, with the throttle. That's so much more pulley. Fucking hell. Jesus Christ. It's so entertaining. It's got so much punch. My cousin teaching him how to ride my bike. Fuck, it's so torgy, but like, I could never imagine. I mean, I know a lot of people say like the difference between these and the actual 1000 or the 998s or whatever, but the newer models, like difference in power is immense. But I mean, fucking hell, you've got to consider that an inline 4x, I've only rode a 6. This has got so much more punch than a 6. So much more. You know, it's insane. So much more punch. I mean, I don't know, I've always, before I rode, I mean, I know this is not a litre bike, but it basically is a litre bike. After running a couple of 600s, I always said, you know, you don't, you know, I couldn't fathom what the power would be like on a litre bike. And this is the closest in an inline 4 configuration I've rode to a litre bike. But it's just so punchy, it's instantaneous, you know. I mean, I'm in second, I think, so I'm in a higher gear, and it's like, they're not roll-ons as such, but you know, I'm not right up in the rev range. And it's just instantaneous, it's just there straight away. It's a lovely bike to ride, and it's not as mental as I thought they'd be. Don't get me wrong, it's quick. Clearly it's quick, but it's a lot of the newer blades supposedly are a lot more ferocious. You know, they'll lift in second and first gear when you start redlining in each gear when you're you know, riding along at that fair pace. Whereas this doesn't, even in first. You know, it starts to get light, but it won't lift. It maybe takes up a bit of travel in the force. Like I said, it won't lift on you, which is it stops you from panicking, you know, because I mean, the first time you ride a big bike, the first time I rode a 600, it started to lift. It did not make me panic, but it was a bit scary, I will admit. Give him a nod. He didn't T-bone me. It is scary because you just don't expect it to happen. But you know, this doesn't, and it's still fucking quick. You know, it is royally quick. There's no slow poke about it. But I thought it would be overwhelming. I thought it would be like, you know, realistically, going any more than quarter throttle out of a corner, you'd be spinning all over the place. You know, it was an unrealistic expectation. I thought we'd be ridiculous. And maybe, you know, things like the H2 and, you know, the more higher end ones are. I mean, this is a 52 plate, so it's, you know, it's not old, but it's fairly old, and it's probably lost a bit of power over its time, and it probably only had about 150, I say only, it probably had about 150 horsepower at the factory anyway. But you know, in comparison to a newer blade, the newer blade quite clearly would outperform it. But it's, I mean, I can't really compare it because I've never rode anything as close to a liter bike as this, but this seems like if you was to go for a liter bike, it would be a good first one to go for, because it's not too in your face, it's not too hard to control. You know, it's lovely on cornering, it feels more or less exactly like a 600RR. It's nice and smooth. It's a little bit choppy every now and again on the injection. When you're at low revs, it just sort of seems a little bit like coffee. But it's not that bad. It's just lovely to control. It's nice and smooth. As I'm saying, I mean, I'm sort of probably repeating a couple of things, but it really is. You know, and it's not like, you still have to give it a fair bit of throttle for it to really start to go in a good way. I mean, I'm in higher gear. But you know, I think initially I just had an unrealistic expectation. I just thought it would be, you know, more or less unrideable. But it's not, you know, it's really not. And at first, you know, I always thought, oh, what's the point in having a liter bike? You know, it's too much power, you're never going to use it, you're never going to need it. But realistically, it's not. It's just got a little bit more get-go everywhere. You know, it's got an immense amount of torque from the higher revs, just like sort of roll on the higher revs. It's just, yeah, it's more torquey. Of course, it's going to achieve a higher top speed, and its acceleration is, you know, quicker. You know, 0 to 60, 0 to 100, and obviously upward. But you can quite easily cruise around at 60, 70 miles an hour on it. You know, it's not as if you can't. I was never under that illusion, but I just thought that I don't know, I just thought it'd be uncontrollable, very uncontrollable. But this particular bike really isn't, and it's quite user-friendly. I mean, it's a Honda by nature. Honda have always been that way with all their bikes, you know. In my eyes, you know, things like Yamaha's have always been more track focused. Maybe a little bit of Kawasaki, but they're a lot more. They tend to be torquier of the bunch. And Honda always tend to be the sort of, not commuter, but you know, the all-round does every kind of job very nicely, very gracefully. You know, I'm not saying they're not quick. Of course, they're still quick, but you know, they're the most comfortable riding position, riding style, the most reliable, in my opinion, generally speaking. They're just lovely bikes. They really are. And of course, I mean, I didn't start out on a Honda, believe it or not. I started out on a Suzuki, but you know, my geared bike is a Honda. And I suppose maybe I've sort of just been drawn into that, and just, you know, kept going with Honda because I've had a good experience with them. I never had a bad experience with my first Suzuki, on a 50cc. I suppose a lot of people I know have Hondas. A couple of people I know have Yamahas, but just most have Honda. You know, most commute a lot, so they don't have a car. So I suppose a lot of the bikes predominantly I've rode have been, you know, Hondas. But that's just my general opinion on them. They just tend to be the most inviting, the most user-friendly, the most comfortable. I mean, this is lovely. You know, it's not what I expected. And as I said, I'm not knocking the power by any means. You know, it is fucking powerful. But it's not overwhelming. That's the most important part. Finish. Yeah, it's not overwhelming. You can ride it very, very leisurely. Yeah, I don't know, really. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just a lovely all-round bike. Yeah, just lovely all-round, nice and smooth, very, very easy. And of course, it's just insanely powerful. but almost usable. That's another thing, is a lot of bikes, you know, have got mental horsepower figures, but how much of that can you actually use, you know? Yeah, I mean, it's obviously most bikes have got mental horsepower figures, but how much of that can you actually use? This feels like you could, I mean, you can use a lot of it without being scared. From a first rider point of view, I mean, this is only maybe the 5th or 6th time I've rode it just around this area, and I'm fairly comfortable to, you know, go full throttle on it. I know the worst I'm going to get out of it is maybe a little bit of shaking through the bars every now and again. You know, I'm not scared that it's going to start slipping or it's going to start power wheeling ultimately. So it's, in my eyes, it'd be a good first litre bike. It really, really would. It's fantastic, it really is. I think I really am sort of like a thoroughbred Honda person now. I just love Hondas. I mean, I'm not denying that I wouldn't love a cross-plane R1 or anything like that, but you know, they're leagues, in all fairness, they are leagues above this bike. Right, let's give it a bit of stick, shall we? Need more road. I'm not going to try and fucking whiz around this left-hander at 150. That's the thing a lot of people said to me, is once you step onto a litre bike, you just need more and more road, because you get there so quick, and you really do. Yeah, it's fantastic, but it's a lovely all-round bike. It's a beautiful bike. It's nice and comfortable. I'm not in any pain at all. And it's not overly pulley on my wrists. It's just lovely all round, it really is.